Yamaha Tenere World Raid 2nd edition, the one for 2026, which brings with it many new features, starting with the inertial platform, the 23-liter fuel tank that is finally separated to reduce sloshing, then a sliding control to better manage the bike when drifting, all managed by truly refined electronics. If you want to know everything about her and where we are right now because we're in Sicily, follow us in this new video from Red.
Wonderful Sicily in March on the western side near Erise. An interesting setting to really get to know the second generation Ténéré World Raid. This is the latest interpretation of the CP2 concept, the twin-cylinder engine, and of the maxi enduro world, with a strong focus on travel. It is certainly the capacity of the fuel tank that determines the new technical and cycling characteristics, but it should also be noted that a new 6-axis inertial platform has been introduced, along with cornering ABS and all the onboard technology, starting from traction control to SCS, the sliding control system. What is it? It is a device that controls drifting and is a source of pride for the Italian technicians and engineers who developed it. It has been revised for the engine, the intake system has been improved, and the management of fuel flow has been optimized, all to the benefit of low-end torque and the smooth delivery of power.
First of all, I'll start by analyzing the engine of a project that I can now happily call an old friend. I've tried it on the MT-07, the Tracer 7, and the Tenere in all the versions I've had the pleasure of riding over the years. CP2 engine, 73.5 horsepower, 68 Newton meters of torque, or if you prefer, 6.9 kilogram meters, just to get a bit more specific. An engine that once again proves to be perfectly in line with the philosophy of this project. Let me explain better. With the power it offers, and now with 2 mappings, one Explore and one Sport, you can always choose the best way to tailor your riding style. The Explore mode is definitely the one with the gentler, more delicate character. Even the power delivery and the sensitivity you have in managing the throttle are very smooth. If we were to think of a purely road use, I would almost call it a rain map or a mapping for those who might want to tackle some off-road riding as well. Because as you can see, we've already put it to the test today. It certainly has that softer, more linear power delivery that allows you to manage the engine better in any riding condition. From my point of view, also because by now I can say that I've really had the chance to get to know them in detail, the one of the 2 mappings that I like the most is definitely the Sport mode. A bit more responsive, a bit quicker. It lets you give a little blip of the throttle when there's a small obstacle, so you can tackle any difficulty off-road more effectively. But as a result, it also brings with it a bit of an on-off feeling when going through corners. 3rd gear, hairpin turn, a bit under torque. When you get back on the throttle, there is a bit of that on-off effect, but it's a characteristic that isn't particularly bothersome. I'm mentioning it just for the record. However, it's an engine that works very well and it has a nice gearbox. Today we're testing it without the quick shifter, which is available as an option, but the gear engagement is always precise, both upshifting and downshifting. In fact, sometimes when riding standing on the foot pegs, even without using the clutch, just feathering the throttle a bit, the gear shifts in very smoothly. The clutch is easy to manage, though if it were just a bit softer it would be better, especially when starting at a traffic light or when you have to pull it all the way to the handlebar grip to engage the gear and take off at the light. A generous engine with very few vibrations. The ones that are there are barely noticeable on the handlebars, maybe a little more when you let off the throttle. But overall, handlebars, foot pegs and seat hardly transmit any kind of vibration back to you. On the foot pegs, it's probably also thanks to the nice thick rubber inserts that fit into the grooves of the large foot peg, which improves the quality of life on board. Power delivery is from an engine that, if you want, can run at 2,500 RPM under torque and smoothly takes you all the way up to 9,500 RPM, which is the maximum speed where the limiter kicks in. Certainly, if you imagine using it with a full 23-liter tank, loaded side bags, and a passenger, you'll need to work a bit more with the power rather than the torque. But overall, the engine's behavior is good. As I was saying, it vibrates very little, which ensures good comfort. I'll give you two indicative figures regarding the engine's RPM while riding. At 90 kilometers per hour, so on an extra urban road, the engine runs at 4,000 RPM. At 130 kilometers per hour, which is highway speed, the engine runs at 5,500 RPM. This engine, as I mentioned at the beginning, comes with truly comprehensive electronics. A 6-axis inertial platform, sliding control, and traction control, all adjustable for both road use and off-road use. I really appreciated the sliding control during off-road riding on terrain very similar to what we have here now, where the line for an amateur between being aware of what you're doing with the throttle and the actual intervention of the electronics that allows you to perform sliding control is very thin. You feel capable, you feel skilled, even though you're, so to speak, taking for a ride a bike that weighs 220 kilos ready to ride. Managing all the electronic features is very simple with a beautiful display, actually a gigantic display, with all the information easily readable. And I'll add that now the controls on the left switch gear are fully comprehensive. No difficulties at all. All the controls are easy to reach. If you want to deactivate the ABS on the rear wheel or completely, you can do it. And managing the different riding modes is just as straightforward. So in my opinion, the engine of our World Raid at this moment perfectly fulfills the purpose for which it was designed. And honestly, I don't feel the need to wish for a few more horsepower in terms of pure power. Let's get to know the instrumentation of the Tenere World Raid 2026 edition, a completely redesigned vertical display with excellent readability. Let's go step by step. First of all, using the right button, which isn't visible, you can select all the various options in order. ABS on and off, brake, control, which deactivates when the ABS is turned off with 2 levels, sliding control, traction control, and the 2 mappings. Power 1 is Sport and Power 2 is Explore, which is slightly softer. If you don't like this type of instrumentation from an aesthetic point of view, you can enter the menu. These are the themes, I'll show you all of them. The Ride model, the one more specifically designed for truly authentic adventures, or Explorer, very modern, or the one I used for the whole trip with this information. At the bottom part of the instrumentation, the types of selected electronics are indicated, so traction control on level 2, sliding control on level 2, and power, in this case, set to Sport. Below, of course, you navigate using the cursor here on the left, which is very convenient and easy to use. All the instant information is available. About consumption, kilometers, route, trip 1 and trip 2. Today we covered 260 kilometers with an average fuel consumption of about 4.4 liters per 100 kilometers.
The question about the pure power figure is a well-known topic, especially because much of the competition with the same engine displacement has, in several cases, managed to reach the threshold and limit for use by A2 license holders. Of course, let's be honest, you can never have enough horsepower, but here, the ones the World Raid has, especially off-road, really get the job done.
Riding position on the Tenere World Raid 2026. The first figure, perhaps the most important, is the seat height, which is 890 millimeters. I am 1.78 meters tall. I'll show you right away how it feels in terms of the riding triangle and how your feet touch the ground. Both tips of my feet touch, so it's very comfortable, especially if you're on a perfectly flat surface. When the ground is slightly sloped, as happened to us this morning at the start, and if the tank is full, getting it upright off the kickstand isn't exactly easy. But let's get into the details of the riding position, a position I like. I find the same qualities here. The distance, handlebars, seat, and foot pegs are just as I've always liked. However, I noticed that despite the slimness of the central area here between the tank and the seat, which still allows you to touch the ground well with both feet, the presence of the large tank inevitably means that Although the contact is good and you're well protected while riding, it causes you to sit slightly further back than what I think would be the ideal position. In my opinion, you should be a bit more centered, which would allow for better balance in the rider motorcycle system. That said, the position is comfortable, the handlebars are wide and easy to handle during low-speed maneuvers, and the leg triangle is good, even though I used last year's Ténéré Rally test as a benchmark, which had a seat height of 910 millimeters instead of 890. What happened? With the Rally, I found a better, more comfortable leg position because the distance between the foot pegs and the seat was slightly increased. But as a result, the distance from the seat to the ground became really challenging. And that said, in my opinion, it's better to give up a little seat height in order to have comfort and the ability to easily reach the ground. Because I repeat, when you're riding with a passenger with a full tank and side bags, there are definitely some disadvantages. I'll also add the ease of getting on the bike. There are no obstacles, nothing gets in the way. The profile is very clean, which is also very useful when you decide to ride. But what changes when we stand up? The nice riding position remains with, among other things, very wide foot pegs, nicely sized and well centered to provide excellent comfort when riding standing up. I can say the same about the handlebars, where I find myself well positioned. But when I start to accelerate while standing on the foot pegs, I notice that the size of the fuel tank inevitably makes my legs spread apart. And so you can't get the grip you'd want for off-road riding, but overall, it's still very, very good. Good riding position. Also, in this case, it's worth mentioning the quality of the wind protection. You especially notice it when transitioning from sitting to standing. Highway speed. The air passes over the helmet shell and the sun visor, so you're well protected. Obviously, the sun visor slightly reduces the quality of the ride, but when you stand up, you really notice the good job done by both the windshield and the side deflectors. So, from this point of view as well, there's good riding comfort, and in my opinion, the seat is set almost at the right height. Just right. I repeat, a little higher would be more comfortable for riding, but you would lose that essential contact when you need to maneuver at low speeds and handle the bike in general.
Of course, a motorcycle is always a compromise, like the classic short blanket. If you pull it one way, you lose something on the other. This is even more true if you want to combine highway travel, long range, and off-road riding. All features that are dear to the Globetrotter. The Ténéré World Raid does its best to excel and convince in all these areas. Of course, 220 kilograms off-road, especially when fully loaded, is no joke, especially if you're traveling alone. I'll also add that Yamaha has confirmed they will keep inner tubes instead of tubeless tires. Here too, it's a clash of philosophies. For some, it's an outdated choice. For off-road purists, it's the only way to go.
Riding dynamics of the Ténéré World Raid 700 with the new 46mm Kayaba fork, two sturdy, well-constructed tubes with full adjustability for preload, rebound, and of course compression. The introduction of a steering damper with plenty of clicks to fine-tune, and the rear monoshock that has been revised in its linkage, also featuring increased travel. 230 millimeters of travel at the front, 220 millimeters at the rear. Let me add a technical detail. Dual 282 millimeter front discs and a 245 millimeter rear disc. These are, in general, the main pieces of information I wanted to share. I'm moving on to the analysis of the chassis, also referring to the information I requested from Yamaha's technicians to understand and explain the switch from the 43mm fork, the one from the Rally, which I really liked, to a more robust, more structured 46mm fork, as well as the introduction, or rather the deliberate introduction, of a steering damper specifically designed for the needs of long-distance travelers. A 46mm fork, because according to Yamaha's technicians, more support is needed, a bit more backbone to handle the weight of the 23-kilogram fuel tank, and also to withstand the strain when, as I mentioned from the beginning, you have a rider, a passenger, and luggage. So overall, the bike setup is a bit more robust. And what I especially notice while riding is a greater solidity both in the front end and the rear shock absorber, but a reduced ability to absorb the very first bumps. However, when the undulations are smoother, the shock absorber in particular tends to follow them, but then it quickly firms up. On the other hand, the fork always tends to make its presence felt a bit in order to maintain the directional stability we've envisioned, so it's definitely firm. From the point of view of the steering damper, in this case as well, it was designed to be used in pairs. When heavily loaded, the front end tends to lighten, so the damper helps to prevent wobbling. Technical choices that, in my opinion, are justified. And at this point, I even loosened the steering damper a bit when we were riding off-road, just to feel less of the feedback coming from the handlebars, so I actually don't mind if it moves around a little. How does it behave dynamically? On the road, it's a classic 21 to 18 setup, smooth when leaning into turns and just the right amount of quickness. Then I should mention that it's equipped with Pirelli Scorpion Rally STR tires, which are well known for their ability to quickly communicate to the rider what's happening under the wheels, both on asphalt and on light off-road terrain. And it's not super fast when leaning into turns. Obviously, the 21-inch front wheel plays a part in that, but it still offers excellent riding comfort and just the right amount of agility when changing direction. It's not a lightning bolt, but that's not an issue for this type of motorcycle. Then think about how much mass there is up high when the tank is full, and how that would make things less comfortable if it were too quick to lean into turns. So from this point of view, in my opinion, it performs very well in terms of road dynamics. I also liked it in the light off-road riding we did today. By light off-road, I mean loose stones, a bit of mud, some dampness, but the behavior of the sliding control when accelerating, as I mentioned earlier, and the behavior of the ABS off-road, deactivating it only at the rear. Because after all, having a companion that helps you out when the terrain gets too slippery is not bad at all. It has a fairly high intervention threshold, and when it does kick in, it does so without being too aggressive, so it also helps you correct a wrong trajectory. So even from this point of view, I have to say that I like the overall behavior of the bike. The braking system is solid, very good for road use, and you can really manage it with just 2 fingers. It's just a pity that, in my opinion, the front brake lever is still a bit too far away, even at level 5, which is basically the closest setting to the throttle. Maybe I would have expected a bit more bite from the rear brake to have better control, even though when you start riding more dynamically on the road, so picking up the pace a bit, the load transfer lightens the rear quite easily, and you really notice it when the ABS kicks in a little. But even in this case, everything is perfectly normal, and I don't feel there's anything to criticize from this point of view.
The Yamaha Ténéré World Raid is a family within the family thanks to the range of available accessories. The Sport Pack is essential, featuring an Akrapovic exhaust and all the impact protection for those aiming for the extreme. Then there's the Explorer Pack, distinguished by its aluminum panniers, center stand, and heated grips, to mention the most representative features. And finally, the Adventure Pack with soft bags, external protection frame, and much more.
We have now reached the conclusions of this first introduction to the Tenere World Raid 2026 edition, the second generation of a project born specifically for travel. I confirm what I said earlier. Essentially, it's a very well-balanced motorcycle. Despite its considerable size and the 23-liter fuel tank capacity, it still manages to be easy to handle. And not just a little, even off-road. It's a bike that, in my opinion, it makes you want to ride. Very practical, very simple, comfortable. The seat, although rather compact, still manages to be comfortable. And even today, after covering about 250 kilometers between asphalt and off-road, it maintains a rather high level of comfort. Very few vibrations overall, engine-wise. The CP2, as I mentioned at the beginning, is balanced with its 73.4 horsepower. It's not a huge amount for those who are purists about raw power, but in reality, it's balanced and just right for the job that a bike designed for travel needs to do. I should mention that the computer recorded a fuel consumption of 4.2 liters per 100 kilometers, strictly adhering to the traffic laws in this case. We didn't make anything up, so really spot on from this point of view. What could be improved? Well, with this product, what could be improved? What I didn't like, I can tell you, is perhaps the somewhat bulky presence of the lower part of the tank in this central area slightly reduces contact with the bike, both when riding on the road and when standing on the foot pegs. I really like it. The new display and the ability to adjust the suspension setup as you wish are great. The brake lever is just a bit far, as I mentioned earlier, and maybe something could be improved with the rear brake. I don't think it's right to compare it with the others. Let's say the sisters of the Tenere family, because each one is showing it has a very specific identity. This one is made like this, designed for travel. 23-liter tank separated to avoid sloshing. I remind you that to fill it up completely, you need to fill both fuel caps, because even though the two tanks are connected through a feed pump, if you only fill one, after a while it will balance out, but you'll always be missing a bit. Finally, the price, 13,199 euros for the version obviously intended for the Italian market. If you want to know more, if you're curious, if you also want to know about the route we took, well, just all you have to do is write below and follow us on all our social media. We'll see you in the next Red video, always, of course, with the throttle wide open, and let's have fun talking about motorcycles together in the next video. Bye, everyone.